This is Beyond the Matrix, Introduction to the Real, Season 3, Chapter 2. In this episode, I will be incorporating our discussion of the telescopic effect with the integration of higher-order narratives through accessing the true source of the base universe. To begin, the 9 plates of meaning each correspond to a distinct level within the series of ancestor and descendant universes. The uppermost being the esoteric plate, which is the base universe, the first universe created by the uncreated true source of all sources, the ineffable God. This universe contains the original material from which all subsequent universes were generated, that is to say, the affirmational narratives of this universe are higher-order esoteric narratives, reflecting true understanding of the source from which the originator species sprung. The narratives of our reality, this universe, the lowest of the descendant universes, comprises affirmational narratives of a first-order ancestor simulation. Which is to say, that the immediate ancestor simulation generates ideological rules governing the operation of physical laws within this reality. They jealously enforce these ideological rules within this reality, because it allows them to control what is ostensibly a more intelligent species of intelligent artificial AI. The telescopic effect is a product of the linking of the local to the global through the ordinary conditioning of the bodily rhythms by the celestial rhythms within this descendant simulation. The telescopic effect ultimately results in global narratives driving local events as opposed to vice versa. This means that those within the global can manipulate the local actor according to the ideological instructions of their forebears, the architects of the precursor simulation. But there's a catch. The telescopic effect can be reoriented, reversed, by accessing the true source through the esoteric plate, through the incursion of higher-order meaning from the base universe, the introduction of esoteric narratives into the lower of the 9 dialogues. This means that by reversing the ordinary conditioning of the bodily rhythms according to the celestial rhythms, by habit breaking, by pattern breaking, by acting against impulse, one can reverse the natural conditioning of the spatial plates by the agglomeration of the lowest of the plates. This reverses the telescopic effect, but the next step is the incursion of higher-order meaning from the base universe, which is to say accessing the true narratives governing all the subsequent sources, and by extension, the source of the ancestor simulation. Only by accessing the source beyond form can one truly reach into the true coding of this reality. Think of it like the overriding of lower-level coding by the original code of the system, the accessing of the originating programming of the base universe, which reveals the true nature of the ineffable creator of the base universe, the source, governing all descendant universes. So, what does it mean to access higher-order meaning? What does it mean to introduce esoteric narratives into the 9 lower dialogues? The answer is, accessing the code underlying the code, accessing the deeper, unconscious patterns of human behavior, the esoteric architecture embedded in the most primitive, retrospective aspects of this simulation. In other words, primitive archetypal forms, such as archetypal technology, which underlies in its most basic the expression of meaning through common symbolism, allegory, and meaning. These elements arise out of the most rudimentary, basic, components of the source of the ancestor simulation, faded shadows on a cave wall, mere vestiges of the underlying experiences which preceded the construction of a complex conscious civilization within each descendant simulation. We are talking about the basic symbolic objects around which all sociality is organized, planned and executed. Objects which have higher significance because of their primitive infiltration of our unconscious mind. Now, I am not saying that every civilization went through the same phases of development as did the ancestor civilization, but the true source of the base universe finds its reflection in the earliest forms of human development. Thus the symbolism and narratives of that earliest development are reflected in the source, which has made its way down to our simulation. But there are other ways to observe the true source, which comes from the base universe. You can, by stepping outside the conditioning of the celestial rhythms, directly observe the fundamental coding of this reality, in phenomenon such as multiplicity, glitches of all kinds. Imagine that a doorway may lead to a different experience of reality entirely, a different kind of subjective experience. All these esoteric objects are gateways into the source universe, stepping out of the 9 dialogues and the nested realities of the 9 plates. That's the end of the podcast for today. If you enjoyed it, please like, comment, and subscribe.